Let me check.
Okay. Okay, I think it's 8:19, so we can start today's lab session. Okay, so in the previous weeks, you have looked at time-based reminders and how to show the time for the reminders on a list view. So today we are going to look at how to add Google Maps to your application, how to set the reminders based on the map, how to click on the map to select specific locations for your reminder. So before we go to the code, there are some steps that we need to do. We need to get a Google Maps API key. So what we need to do is to go to Google Cloud Platform Console. console.cloud.google.com. If you don't have an account already, you can simply create one.
It's different in Windows. Here I have extra option, but you don't have. So you cannot share the full screen. Then just switch to Android Studio, so it will be visible in full screen. Because for now it's like that.
So if I switch to Android Studio.
No. I mean, you should have. You sure? Yeah, sure.
One.
Yeah.
This here.
Yeah, and just switch it to Android Studio the next time when it will show it. Because I mean, the whole screen is not visible.
So the screen is not visible.
I mean, not whole, but only to left.
Only to where it
The
has
gray
set. Okay,
panel.
I see. All right, so on Google Cloud Platform Console, why do I have this green screen? I have a green screen. I'm checking what's happening from this. Okay, I don't know. Maybe it has to do with my graphics. I don't know what's happening. Okay, so on Google Cloud Platform Console, you create a new project. So you create a new project. You give it a project name, for example, and then you click on create and create a new project. So let me give it a project name, for example, Mobicom Lab 5. Then I click on create. Then I have a new project created. So I select that project that I just created, Mobicom Lab 5.
Like location.
Come again?
That's exactly. And I'm making the browser because that location thing.
Yes, I don't know whether it matters, but what options do you have there? You have Finland and.
Well, there's now selected no organization.
Yeah, I guess you can change that configuration later depending on what you want to do with this project.
Like, I think because when I click the browser, there's this window and it says shared folders. So maybe they are just for like organization in this project page.
Okay.
I think this was some issues with internet because when you start a search, I mean, if you click on the other part, the quality is very low on the stream.
Yeah. Maybe it's pan only.
Yes, probably.
So maybe I should change to a do room.
Yeah, but I guess stream will go down.
Yeah, the stream will go down. I don't want to do that.
Yeah,
I should be fine. Okay, so after you've created the project, you now select the project from this tab. And I've now selected the project that I created. So you go to the menus at the top left, then you select APIs and services, then you come to credentials. So APIs and services credentials. Now you create a new credentials by clicking on this. So create credentials API key. Then the API key is generated for me. So at this point, you can click on this icon to copy it. Then you can now click on close. Yes, create credentials, then you select API key, then an API key is generated for you here. You can copy the API key straight away, even at this point, by clicking on this button and click on close. So now the API key, you see the generated API key in this list. You can come back here at any time you want and copy it. So the next step after creating the API is to activate Google Maps for Android on your project. So so you click on, you see the top left menu, this one. So you click on it this way, and then the sidebar opens. So you go back to APIs and services, and then you go to dashboard. So APIs and services dashboard loads this dashboard for you. Then you click on enable APIs and services. So after you have created the API key, you have to come to enable APIs and services. So I click on this enable APIs and services. Then a lot of APIs and services are loaded here for me. So I look for, or I search for Maps SDK for Android. I guess it's the first in my list. So I just click on it. And the next thing I do is I click on enable. So let me take it again. So you go to APIs and services, dashboard. On dashboard, you go to enable APIs and services. Then you now select Maps SDK for Android, then enable. So these are the steps that we need to do here. Okay, I hope everybody has been able to follow at this point. Okay. Yes. Okay, so let me go back to the yes. So I have this. So you go to APIs and services. The first thing is to create the API key, which is credentials. After credentials, you click on create credentials, API key to create the API key, right? And the next thing you do is to come to the menu again, APIs and services dashboard. Then you click on enable APIs and services. Then you look for Maps SDK for Android. And that's the first in my list. So you click on it and then you click on enable. So now it says that API enabled.
So for me, it shows like I think it's enabled, but it's just that you category and you like.
Yes, when you are actually going into production and you want to publish your apps, then you need to go through these steps. But I guess for the purpose of this exercise, once you create the API and you activate, you enable the API service, that's fine for this exercise.
Yeah, but it doesn't show that
Valerie, can you look at it? Okay. So now after we have finished this step, the next step is to add the API key into our project. So let's now open our Android Studio. So once we open our Android Studio, we go to our manifest. Inside manifest, we have applications. So inside applications, we can now add a new tag here, meta data. In meta, we can add our Go Android Geo API key. So that's the name, and then the value here will now be our API key. So you can go and copy the API key and paste it here, for example. So I go back to the APIs and services. I can go back to where the credentials are, for example, dashboard, credentials. I have the API key here, so I can just copy it, come back to Android Studio, and then paste it here. No? So I have this step done now. So you create a metadata inside application, and then you put in your Google Maps API key. So you create a metadata, name is com.google.android.geo.api key. So let's make sure that we get this step correct. Otherwise, we will have some errors along the line. And okay, so once that is done, the next step, since we'll be needing some permissions along the line.
Can you show that manifest?
Okay. So I show the manifest again. Yes. In applications. So if you come to the manifest, this is the root tag applications. Inside applications, you create metadata. Name is com.google.android.geo.api_key. Your API key. So don't copy what I have written there, but copy your API key that you created and paste it here. Yes. Yes. So the next step, because we are going to use locations in our application, we will need to add these location permissions to the manifest. So that's the next step that we will do. So inside the manifest, so let's go back to Android Studio. Inside the manifest, this time not in applications, but outside applications. So let me create this space for it. Then I'll write users permission. We will just add two permissions, course location, and then the next one will be file location. You can use any of these depending on what you are doing, but let's say I want to use both. So let me just add them both here. Okay. So I've added these two permissions. We will need these permissions along the way. These permissions doesn't go in application, but it comes outside application. So if I fold this application tag, you can see that this location is outside. So we add two permissions, use permission, Android permission access, course location, and Android permission access find location. Okay. So after we finish with these two steps, okay, now let's move on. Now the next thing is to also add. Is that okay? Yeah, it's better now. Okay. So the next thing is to add Google Play Services API dependencies into our project. So now what we do is that we come to Android Studio, we go to Tools, SDK Manager. Then on the left tree here, or the left menus, we select Android SDK, and then you come to SDK Tools, and then you enable Google Play Services. Yes. So once you click on it, I have enabled it already, but once you click on it, it will ask you to download some packages. So allow it to download these packages. After you've finished downloading it, click on apply and click on OK to close this window. Okay, so let me take this step again. We now want to add Google Play services dependencies into our project. So what I do is that I come to Android Studio, I click on Tools, SDK Manager. Then I select on the menus on the left, I select Android SDK. I come to SDK Tools. There are a number of them here. I look for Google Play Services and I activate it. Once I activate it, it will ask me to download. I allow it to download. After downloading, I click on apply and I click on OK. Then it closes the window. So have you all been able to follow through this step? Okay. So now let's now add these dependencies to our project. So let's go to, I'll copy them straight away from here. So let's go to Android Studio. Now in Android Studio, we come to our Gradle, build.gradle under model app. So this very one. To realize that in the first lab, we added some dependencies already. So let's add these new dependencies here. So I'll just put it at the bottom here. So implementation com.google android.gms play services map. So this is needed for the Google Maps that we will be adding to our project. And then
if we are doing something our own, if we want to use something like that, Google Maps or something, we can just search it from the internet and we will go to the Android that basis, and so what we have to like choose the name.
yes, exactly. So for example, if you want to enable, let's say, Google Places API on your app, there are a lot of official documentation pages online. So that's what he was trying to say. So you can just go Google it and you'll see the official Android documentation. It will show you step by step how to enable specific API or Google Play services on your app. So now you want to enable Google Maps and location API. So the next one is for location services. There's an option to add all the Google Play services into your app if you need multiple of them, but I think from experience that will just bloat your APK along the way. So at this point, just use what you need specifically. So we need maps and location. So after we have added these dependencies, now we have to click on sync now. So we click on sync now, then it downloads and inject all the dependencies into our project. So implementation com.google. Do you see? Okay, maybe this is too small. Let me go back to the presentation. The presentation might be bigger. Somehow the Zoom is not recording the whole screen. I don't know. But yes, com.google.android.gms:play-services-maps 17.0.0. Okay. So once we have this, our next step is to now start to write some code to generate this interface. So let's now go back to Android Studio. You right click. So under resource layout, you right click on it, new. Then you create an activity. You select an empty activity. Next, you give it a name, map activity. Do you already have one? Okay, so if you already have one, then you just use it. I thought you don't have it. Okay. So basically, this is our map activity for now. So if you don't have these buttons and stuff here, there are a number of things that you can reuse. For example, we can go back to our time activity and quickly bring these two items here. So we can just bring back, we don't have this test, so I just copy it and then bring it to our map activity straight away. So I'll get rid of this test view and rather add an edit test. So we realize that the layout has messed up a bit. So we will take some time and redo that one. So I'll take away these remnants here. Okay. Now, so what we will do now is to add a fragment. So this fragment, we want it to but the name should be com.google.android. No. So this is a very important attribute that you need to get in the fragment. So inside this fragment, you need to make sure that you have this name com.google android gms maps support map fragment. So we want this fragment to occupy 90% of the page. So we will do layout height. So let's first add some constraints here. So let me constrain this. Just add these constraints here, right? So hold on. Okay, I've already added these. I think in the previous labs we've taken time to do how to add these constraints, but so this point I'll just go to the code base and just bring it over so that we can cover all the items as fast as possible. Okay, so I'll just bring in these. Then I'll just take time to explain step by step what they mean. Okay. All right, so if you look at what I have here, I have a fragment, this fragment, and what I'm saying is that this fragment should cover 92% of the whole page. And we also have a search space here where we can search the map. So let's first do the fragment, this first fragment. Let's make sure we have this fragment done. So I'm saying that because I wanted to cover 92% of the page as constraint, I'm saying layout height is 0 dp, but the width should match parent. And then I say constraint height percentage to 0.92. So I want to cover 92% of the page. Come again? Okay. Okay, so let me go to presentation view. You'll probably see it better this way. Okay, so let's make sure we have this fragment here. Now this fragment, you give it an ID, for example, map fragment as an ID. Then the name, this is a very important attribute that you need to get here, com.google.android.gms.maps.support map fragment. Then the width, you want it to cover the whole parent, so fill the whole screen. And then the height.
By the way, about that ID.
Yes.
What's that at plus ID?
Yeah. So Android Studio behind the scenes is building a class, right, that stores all these IDs. So this plus ID means that there are other resources in there. For example, there are strings, there are drawables, there are values. So you want it to add this ID to this ID reference. So not any other resource, but this one. So that's why we do this instead of maybe drawables or string or any other resources. So it will add this particular ID to the list of IDs that this project has. Okay, so once you have this, the next one is the edit test. You can bring it over from the time activity.
Will this be available to copy this whole text
Okay, maybe I can paste it on the Zoom if that's what.
Yeah, because there's so many.
Okay. Yeah, and actually so that's a good idea because our very focus for today is to make sure that we have our map because we have done a lot of these already. So, okay, I'll just bring this, I'll copy it, but just probably don't copy and paste blindly because you might have different ID names. And so I would just put it in the Zoom, for example. Okay, so the slide, let me publish the slide, which might take some time, but I can easily. I think it's better to paste it on the Zoom. I guess. Hmm? Okay, so you go to Moodle. Oh, okay. All right. So let me just give. So basically, this is it. Yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah. So let me. I can add a last. So I've added the last slide on there. So okay. So Valerie is going to publish a slide for you to have a look at it. But for now, you can try to follow from here. So basically, we are trying to. Well, of course, you can design the interface anyhow you want to do it, because you might have a very good intuition about your own design, get a very nice design. But basically, what we want is that we want to have a map, and you can, for example, just add the fragment, which is the most important component here, and afterwards add a button and add a test, an edit test where you can add the reminder test, and then a button that you can create. So if you look at the previous time-based activity, you already have these two, but these two components already. We have the reminder test and we have so you can just copy it and bring it over to the map activity, and then you can now add a fragment. So you can take your time. If you don't want it to even cover the whole screen, you can let it cover a certain portion of the screen. So it doesn't really matter at this point. You could decide that your map would show from this point up to this point, anyhow you want it to be. But basically, that's how I have designed this interface. So the slide is in Moodle now. You can check if you want to have it exactly as this one, but I guess that's not the point. The point here, but yeah, it's good to maybe follow exactly what I have done. Okay. Have you all been able to follow to this point? Yes, I can see you doing the very. So you don't have to specifically go by design. What you need to do is just have a map fragment and have a component that you enter edit test and have a button to click on to create. And that should be fine. Okay, so Valerie has put the link. So if you want to copy from this, you can. I guess everybody is seeing it. All right. So Is it in the same slide or it's a different slide? Because I want to add something new to the same slide. Okay, so all right. So this is it. Yeah? Okay, I can do it side by side if that's okay.
That's you have that ID outdated autocomplete fragment.
Yes, so that's what I am updating now.
What does that mean?
Yes, I'm putting it here for you to see it. So I have, let me insert a new text box. I'll just paste this one. All right. So basically, this is the code. You can go to Moodle to copy it. So copy from left to right. So this is starting at the top, and this goes to the bottom. So all right. So maybe we can continue from here. So I want to add an icon to this image button that I have here. So what I would do is that I would go to material.io. I go to the icon. Let me look for the search icon. So search. Yeah, so this is the search icon. I'll download it as an SVG. So I download it locally onto my laptop. Then I want to add it as a resource here. So I come to drawables, right click new, vector assets. So I want to get a local vector. I browse to where it is on my laptop. It's on the downloads. So I've added that resource inside drawable, and this is it. So it's a search. So I come to the image button here, and inside the linear layout that we have at the top, then I add source compact at drawable IC. So that's the name of the drawable that I have here. So I just add it here. Do we have it? Okay.
I copied the linear layout. Have I missed something?
So go to, is it the button or the icon? The icon. So I went to material.io, material.io. Right. So you can you can search for icons. I have icons here straight away, right? So it takes me to a lot of icon resources. You can look for any icon. I think the search icon is the best for my. So you click on it and then you click on download, and it downloads the icon onto your. All right, so let's move on. I believe most of us have. Okay, so now let's run the app in an emulator. So I have my emulator started already. It's here. So I want to run it on my phone. So if you look at what I have here, for example, I have this. When I run it, this is what I see. Okay. So I have my map. I have the test, reminder test here. I have the button here. And I have the search here where I can type something and search the map. And I have this button here where I can search the map. Okay. So are we all at this point? Okay. So now the next action is to code behind these components to create a reminder for us and save it into our database. And then by the time we come back to the list, it should show the reminder that we have created in a list. So let's go back to Android Studio now. So now we come to app Java inside our package map activity. All right. So we have to declare a global variable, which is to hold the Google map because we will need it in several places. So late intent var gmap, which is a Google map. Yeah. Resolve reference. So Alt enter, then it resolves the reference for me. So before, the first thing that we need to do is that before we start, we are going to implement some callbacks for the map. So we come to the declaration of the class here. So map activity inherits app compact activity. So just after that one, you do on map. Ready. Hold on. Do I need I don't know why it was not giving me the intelligence, but so once I add this, I need to override some functions on map ready. All right. So what I did here is that for some reasons, my intelligence was not giving me the import. So I had to kind of come here and then put the import here. So I just imported, instead of it importing it automatically for me, I just added this import here. And then this on map callbacks and interface, which I need to implement. So once I implement that interface, I need to override a function in that on map callback, which is override function on map ready. And once the map is ready, what I'll do here, I'll clean this line of code. So I'll just rename this to gmap, right? And what I'll do is that if the map is not initialized very well, maybe for some reason, if it's not initialized, I want to return and not go through that steps of code that I'll have here. So what I'll do is that I have this late init here, which is a global variable for the map. So I'll just assign it to this map that I have here. Then what I'll do is that I'll ask if it is not ready, I'll just return. So that if the map is not initialized, the app will not crash if I try to access functionalities of the map. All right. So I want to, once the map is initialized, I want to zoom the map into the location of the person or the user. Come again? Okay. All right. So let me go to the presentation mode. Yes. Is it okay now? Okay. So now at this point, I want to zoom in into where the person is located. I could have done, for example, gmap dot is enable my location true. Then I can zoom in to get the location of the person and zoom in there. But I need to ask for activate the permissions. In previous versions of Android, if you put this permissions in the manifest, that was okay. But at this, in the later versions of Android need to explicitly check whether the user has granted the app permission to use the location. So what we will do is that I'll create a function here. So all I'll do is I'll ask if context compact dot check self permission manifest dot, so the permission that you want to check. So manifest dot permission dot, did I import the correct manifest? No, so manifest is Android, not java.util. So dot permission dot, if the file location permission is equal to package manager dot permission granted. So if this permission is granted, right? If this permission is granted, perform a certain action. So at this point, I want to check other permissions as well. So, okay, I think the zoom in is hiding some of the items on the screen. I can format it this way. In the same way, I want to check for the other permission, that's the course location. But of course, you don't need both of them, but let's assume that we will need them. So I'll just copy and paste it. And this point, I will just change this one. Instead of find location, I'll do course location. Dot course location. Do you have a question?
No.
So I'll put these ones into location definition. I'll put this. Hold on, maybe I'm messing up somewhere. Okay. Okay, I was putting it after. So it has to come here. So that, yes. So at this point, I'm checking that if the find location permission or the course location permission has been granted, I want it to enable the map location. Okay. I'm repeating these two locations here, but this one should be course location. So permission dot course location. Okay, I was repeating, that's what Valerie was drawing my attention to. Okay, so if I have these permissions, I want to be able to activate the location. Now, the next thing that I want to do is be able to zoom in straight to the person's specific location. Now, for that one, I'll declare a global variable here, which is, so I'll go back to the top here, and then I'll declare a late init fuse location client. Which is of fuse location provider.
It's my location enabled. It's my location enabler.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
Yes, this one. Yeah. Fused. Okay, so unresolved reference, I click on Alt Enter, then it resolves the reference by putting the import here for me. Okay, so once you have this, let's come down to here. Then we see that the fused location client is equal to location services, which is also not resolved yet. So I do Alt Enter dot get fused location client this, right? So this gives me access to the location because I have the permission. I've checked here that I have the permissions granted already. So once I have this, I can now say that if the person clicks, if the map is ready, I want to zoom to the location, the last location of the person. So what I'll do is that fused location client dot location dot add on success, right? So this is actually requesting the location of the person, but it could be that when he requested the location was not available. So I'm interested in when it successfully gets the location. And once it successfully gets the location, I want to create a variable called latitude and longitude, which is equal to lat long. Come again?
It's a class of fused location client.
Yes. So this is it. Fused location provider client. Okay. Right. So I have it here. I come down here. I said I request for the location, and when it is successful, I get a latitude, longitude, which is also not resolved, but I resolve it by pressing on Control Alt Enter. Then I want to get the location from I want to get the location here. So this function has several overloads, but what I want is the one that gives me location. Hold on. So this on success listener has several values, but what I want is the one that gives me a location, not the location availability option. So hold on. What do I have here? Location. So this location dot latitude, location dot longitude. Required answers. Let me see what's happening. Found not required. Let me see on this location availability. Add success. Do we have only location? Not last location. Okay. I think I missed this point. Okay. So this is supposed to be client dot last location dot on dot add on location success. So I can bring in what I said here. Yes. So this is supposed to be fuse location client dot last location dot on dot add on success listener then it gives you the location if it was successfully received. And you can now create latitude and longitude out of it. But at this point, I want to check if the location, so if the location is not equal to null, I perform an action. So what I'll do is that with the Google Maps, the G Maps here, I want to animate the camera of the map to a specific location. So camera updates factory, camera update factory, which is not resolved. Alt enter dot new latitude longitude. So it's once you want to zoom it to a new latitude longitude. You pass your latitude longitude here. So you want it to zoom to as all right. So let's test this code. So let me go through it. So I ask permissions and check that if these permissions are granted, I set the my location activated to true. Then I request for the last known location of the participant or the current location of the user. Then I animate the camera to that specific location. So now let's test this code here. Let me exit presentation view mode. I go to run, yeah. Then I'll show the output. Okay. So I go to the map. Hold on. Let's see. I think something is not already. Okay. So let me just remove this. Yeah. Yes, it doesn't ask for permissions. Do you have any errors in your? Okay, so if it's not granted, I want to ask for the permissions if it's not granted. So that's what I'll do here. Sorry. So if the permissions are not granted, I want to ask for them, right? So what I'll do here is that I'll do activity compact, activity compact request for these permissions. And then it will ask me to pass in an array of permissions that I want to request. So manifest dot manifest dot permissions dot find location, no? Find location manifest dot manifest permissions dot course location. And then I need to also pass a request code, maybe 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay. So if the location has not been granted already, I want to request for it. So at this point, let me take the opportunity to maybe introduce debugging here. So I'll click, instead of running, I'll click on debug, and I've set a breakpoint here. So let's see what happens in there. So I have the, okay, so it comes to it hits the breakpoint. So it checks whether any of these permissions have been granted. The first one, yeah, so you could see that previously was not granted, but now it's saying if it's not granted, it's so it's now asking me for permissions for the location. So what I'll do is that I'll just allow it. And then I have location access. So I'll go back to Android Studio, press on F9 to resume the app. So the next time I come here, if permissions are granted, any of these permissions are granted, which is yes, now it comes to where I was expecting it to be previously. So I'll now resume the code. And you can see that the map, okay, you didn't say it, okay. So let me go back to this place. I go to the map, and the map zooms into my current location. And you can see that my current location is activated. So if I've navigated to somewhere else, I can click on. Okay. Yeah. So what I did here was that previously the permission was not granted. So that's why it was jumping this whole block of code. So I just try to debug the code to see what is happening. So all right. So the time is 9:26 now. So we have about 20 minutes to wrap up. So let's try to be a bit faster here. But I guess this is the most basic step. If you are able to grasp this one, you can work around it and continue to make it better. So we have been able to show our map. Our map now zooms into my current location. So what I want to do is that the next step is maybe when I click on the map, I want to add a marker to the specific place of the map that I've clicked. So I'll now add an on-click listener to the map. So when you click on so this is the map. So here I can start to say that gmap, which is the map dot set on click listener, set on click listener, set on map click listener, map click listener. Right. And I want the one that gives me the location of where the person has clicked. So this one, right? So when you click on the map, it gives me your location. So what I want to do is that next, I want to say with Google Map, with Gmap, I want to clear the map if there are any previous markers on it. So I define a variable here, which I have. So I want to animate the camera to that location so I can quickly bring this code over here. I don't need to type it again from fresh. So once I animate the map to that particular location, I want to now add a marker to that place. So I can now say that var marker is equal to, I add the marker to the map. So marker options, dot position this marker at this location, and once the marker is positioned there, I can run it to see what happens. So now let me stop the debugging, and I want to now run it. Okay. So I go to my map, and my map zooms into my current location, University of Olu. So when I click on any of these places, what happened?
So can you show that?
Sorry?
That listener.
Okay. My screen went blank. I don't know what's happening. Okay. So this is the listener. So I'm saying that when somebody clicks on the map, so gmap.set on click listener on map click listener, and I want to get the location of the location is latitude and longitude. So I say with this gmap, I could have done gmap.clear, gmap.animate camera, but because I'm using gmap.gmap. And I do with gmap so that I can go straight to the methods instead of using gmap as a reference always. That's why I have this with gmap here. And in here, I can do clear. I want to now animate the camera and zoom it to the location where the person has clicked. And then I want to show a marker on that particular place. Now, the next thing is that I want to get some contextual information about the location, not only the latitude and longitude. So I want to use a geocoder to convert the GPS location, latitude and longitude, to an address. So what I'll do is that I'll create a geocoder. Geocoder is equal to geocoder. It will take the application context and then the default locale. So I want to be able to not show only maybe English writings, but if I'm in Finland and my phone's locale is in Finnish, I want to show the addresses in Finnish. That's why I'm getting the default locale. Now I want to use the geocoder to be able to get the address. So geocoder dot get from location. So get from location, the location dot latitude, location dot longitude, and I want to get the max results. The number of results that should return is only one. I want to get only one. So it returns me a list of addresses. So address list is what I get out of this call. Now, what I want to do is that I want to put this in a try catch, because when I tested this, there were some exceptions that was throwing, probably when the geocoder tries to run and maybe there's no internet to go online and get you the address. So out of this address list, I want to create maybe two variables here, right? Maybe title, maybe I'll initialize it to empty here, and maybe I'll create another variable here, let's say city, and then I'll initialize it to empty here. So out of this address list, I want to get the first entry of the address. So the city, if I want to get a city, so the city is equal to this address list dot get the first entry, which is entry 0, dot get locality. So I want to get the locality is the name of the city that it brings. And then the title, I want to get the address of that place. So maybe address list. I want to get the first entry dot get address line 1, address line 0, the first entry of the address line. So okay, this is okay. I declared it as val. You cannot change val along the way. That's why it's complaining now. So let me change it to var. Var means variable which can vary. This variable can vary. So once I have this, now I have the name of the of the city and then maybe the name of the location. So I'll move the code that has the marker down here. So I'll do the geocoding first before I now add the marker, right? And in this marker, I'll update this place to add snippet. The snippet will be the city, and then the next one is I'll add title, which will be the title here. So once I add this marker, I want to show the marker. So marker, I want it to pop up. So marker dot show info window. So let me test this quickly. Okay, so let me go to the screen. All right, so let me go to the Android Studio I run, and it runs the changes onto my phone. Okay, the activity is installed. I have the activity here. So I go to the map, and then the map zooms into my current location. I click on a location here, and as you can see, the location goes to get me the address. Maybe I interchange. I want the address to show in the snippet instead of, so I want the title here and I want the city here. Yeah. So when I click on any location, it pops up. I go to the map. The map zooms into my location. So maybe I want to buy stuff at Valkia in the city center. So I can go to Kalpakeskus. So everywhere I click on the map, the geocoder resolves the address and gives me the address and then the Liminka. So, and then as you can see, when everywhere I click, the map camera goes to where I click. So basically that's it. Do we have you all been able to follow to this point? Okay, so let me show the code again. So what I'm doing here is that with the Google Map, I'm adding a map click listener. And I say that when you click on the map, give me the location, zoom the camera to this particular location, and then use the geocoder to resolve the GPS location and get me the address of that place and then locality. After that, add a marker to that location position, show the snippet and then the city, just like what you saw on that pop-up. Now let's quickly save this location of the person to the database, right? So basically what we will do here is that I want to create a global variable here, late init variable, selected location. Can this code be seen after the class? Yeah, I think we can probably share up to maybe where we have gotten to. Yes, because we tried the exercise and we have done it for all the exercise, so we should. Yes.
So fast, I mean,
Yes. And we are also recording this lecture live. So when you go to Moodle, you find, for example, when I go to Moodle now, Moodle, Let me log into Moodle quickly. Yes. And if I go to the mobile computing, this is under the recordings. You can see that we have all the lectures and the labs. So this was the previous lab that we recorded. You can also watch it if you want to. Yes.
Yes, about the lectures.
Yes.
Would it be possible that you, at the end of the lab,
Yes.
scroll through the
Yes.
files we have been working
Yes.
on?
Yes. I'll do that today too as well, just like as last week. Yes.
And you can also scroll through some of the older ones.
Yes.
For safety's sake.
Okay. All right. I'll do that just like we did the last time. So we have some few minutes left. So maybe I'll go to the wrap up now. But basically what I want to do is that I want to save this location where the person selected into a variable which I can use later. So here I want to say that selected location is equal to this location so that I have it in a variable where I can use it anywhere else. Right? So here, what I want to do here is that, for example, if under the map, the button on click listener, when I click on the create, I want to go and get the test in the reminder test, which is this one. I have map activity. This here. So when I click on this create, I want to get a text here and then get the location as well and save it into the room database. So the next thing I do is I come to this place, right? So I want to get the test. Okay. So let me repeat again. Now I have a reference to the location that the person has selected. So I created a global variable here. And what I do is that I also assign the location where the person has clicked on the map to this variable. Now, the next thing I want to do is that this button here is what I want to click on to create, to save the reminder in the database. Now, this reminder, if I click on this button, I want to get this test, the test that the person has written in the reminder. And then together with the location, I save it into the room database. So the next thing I do is I go back to my code. Then here I have this map create dot on set on click listener. So when the person clicks on it, I want to get a test. So I want to get a test from the reminder. So the reminder test is equal to reminder message dot test dot to string. Right. I want to quickly test if this reminder message is empty because I don't want to save empty test into my database. So maybe I want to toast here and say that please provide, or maybe some catchy message, please provide reminder test. And then I don't want to continue executing again, so I want to return so that it doesn't do anything. It pops the toast and then, but if it's able to pass this line of code and come here, now I want to save the test. And also I want to say that if the selected location, which is a variable here, is equal to null, meaning that there's nothing in here or there's no location. I don't want to continue the execution. I want to show a toast and quickly say that please provide or please select a location on the map. Right. So now if everything is okay, at this point, I'll just see that the message is the reminder test and then the location is string dot format So I want to convert the location to 3 decimal places. So let's say 3F. This is format string formatting in Kotlin. So, and then now I pass the selected location dot latitude, selected location dot longitude. Let me comment out this previous line of code. And comma. Okay. So basically, I'm able to create the reminder here. And then out of this reminder, I initialize my room database and build. If it's not created already, I insert the reminder and then close and then finish. So this is basically going to save this reminder into your database, or this location into your database. So a quick recap of what we have done today as the last 15 minutes. Have you all been able to follow to this step? I understand that there was a lot of things in this lecture, but yeah, so if you have not been able to follow to this step, try to watch the video that we are going to share very soon after this class, and then try to follow step by step. If you have any questions, you can shoot us a mail, or maybe send us an email, and we are going to quickly respond and attend to you. So a quick recap of what we have done today. So today we created Google Maps on our app. So initially we created a Google Map API and activated the Google Maps SDK for Android. Once we did that, we added the dependencies that we needed into our Gradle, which is this one, build.gradle. So these are the dependencies that we added. Then when we finished that, we synced our code so that it downloaded all the dependencies that we needed into our project. The next thing we did was to create, or it was existing already from previous exercise. So what we did was that we added a fragment to show the map. So this fragment is what we need to show the map on the app. Now the fragment has a name, con.google.android.gms map support fragment. So you need this. And then we added also a button, and then we have our reminder test. In the next lab, we will take a look at how to go by this searching the map and stuff like that. So once we did that, we came here to initialize our map. There is a callback method that we need to implement. So this is an interface. We inherited this interface on map ready. And then after that, we also overrode, if I'm using correct English sense, overrode this method on map ready. So once the map is ready, what we do is that we assign it to a global variable here we call gmap, and we check that we have permissions to access the user's location. And for you to do that, the first thing you need to do is to add these permissions to your manifest, which we did here. You need only one of them. You can use course location or file location, but normally I want to use both, just so I can get more refined location data. So now, once I did that, just because we've added those permissions, the manifest doesn't guarantee that the user has accepted those or has allowed those permissions. So you check here whether the person has granted the permission. And then the next thing is that if the person has granted the permission, you enable the location. Yes?
Yes, can you show the entire map activity?
Yes. So this is it the one that I'm running on my phone? Okay. So this is what we have. Yes. So
can you show the code?
Yes, I'm showing the code as well. So this is the code. So I'm enabling this this line of code will enable this button here. This line of code will enable this button here, so that when I click on this location, it can zoom into my current location. Then the next one is that I use Google's Fuse location client to get the current location of the user. Once I'm able to get that location, I try to zoom the camera to the location, right? And if those locations permissions have not been granted, I request for it with this line of code. You can go a step further by saying that when the person answers the permission request, you can check whether it has been granted or not, but maybe we don't want to go there in this exercise. The next thing is that when I click on the map, I want to show a marker of the location that I have clicked on the map. So basically what I do here is that I added a click listener to the map. So gmap.set on click listener. And I want to clear any existing marker on the map before I add a new one. So here I say map gmap.clear, right? I could have done gmap.clear, gmap.gmap.gmap. But since I will need all gmap.gmap in that block, I use this with construct here. So with this construct, and then inside this with, I say clear it, animate the camera to the particular location the person has clicked. So as you can see here, when I click on the camera, it animates to the location that I've clicked. Then the next thing is to use, because when I click on that location, it gives me GPS coordinate, latitude and longitude. But for us, it's not much richer information. We want to convert it to a specific address, or maybe let's say human readable or human friendly value. So to do that, we use our geocoder here. And this geocoder, I create it with local because I want to show, like maybe if the local is in Finnish or in English or in Spanish, I want to show the addresses in such that local. Then with that Google Map geocoder, I get the location with latitude and longitude of the location that the person has clicked. Then I'm saying that it could give me multiple results. For example, if I type Valkia, it's possible that somewhere in Spain, somewhere in China, it's also called Valkia, right? So I want to get maybe the first response, so not so many responses. And here it gives me an address list. And in this list, I can get the first option, first item, because we have only one anyway. Then I get the locality. Then I also do same for the address line. Now, instead of just showing a normal marker, I want to pop up the address as well. So that's what I do here by adding the marker. By adding the marker here. And then I show info. So I show snippet and title. Now I want to have access to the selected location in the global scope. So I have a global variable here, which stores the selected address. Now what I do is that I just assign it. So selected address or selected location is this location. The next thing I do is that if the user clicks on this button, this create button, I want to save the selected location and then the reminder text into our room database. So to do that, I come to the map create. So I create a click listener for that button, right? And in that click listener, what I want to do is that I get the reminder text from the reminder text box of edit text. From that, I want to check whether there's nothing in there, because I don't want to save empty reminders in my database. If it is empty, I show a toast. And if the user has not selected a location to, I also show a toast, because I want to save GPS locations. And here I quickly create a reminder object with this location and then the message, and then I save it into my database. So basically, that's what we have done. We have done for today. Do you have any questions as at this point?
Yeah, I have a short answer. So for this week, we don't have a homework, so you don't need to submit to another what we have done for today. But we will continue working on the application next week, so make sure that you will be able to follow, because we'll start at that point. So please implement all these things that we have done today. But for next Tuesday is the deadline for homework 4, which was from the previous session, the moment where we had completed the time reminder. So complete all the time reminder related codes until next Tuesday and submit to model resolvers.
Okay.
Before you quit, could
Yes.
you please show the main activity dot KT?
Main activity dot this one, yeah. So I have main activity, not map activity. Okay. So I have main activity, this one, yeah.
No, plus Java.
Java, okay. Sorry. Main activity, yeah. So I have this main activity here. Yes.
Okay, so can you scroll through it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then please also show the reminder adapter stuff.
Okay, so reminder adapter dot kt.
Okay, because I have some trouble with.
Okay, all right. So reminder adapter dot kt. This is how it looks like. So it inflates the layout here, and then it also assigns the values to the view. So this is what it looks like, basically. You
those scale
Gradle script. Gradle.
By the way, we already covered all this in the previous session.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if you still curious, I think we covered all the classes on the last video, so you can.
Yes. Okay, so if there is no questions, I think that's all for today. So see you in the next lab. I hope I recall it. So let's see.
Well, it should be fine. The thing is that
And-
on Linux,